I was a member of the University of Pennsylvania women's swim team, where of course I had a normal swimming team experience my first year, and then the beginning of my sophomore year, a member of the men's team named Will comes to all of us and says, I identify as a woman, please refer to me with she, her pronouns, and I will be joining your team next season. And of course, COVID happened, it gets delayed, and before you know it, I'm a senior in college, supposed to be the last year of my career in swimming, and he joins our team. He quickly breaks all of the records in every event that he swims. He then goes on to qualify for NCAAs, which, by the way, most people in the Ivy League do not even qualify for that meet at all. And then he went on to become the first ever man to win a women's NCAA title, which, yes, that photo right there, flashing before me, that is his championship win there. But in the experience, it was as crazy as it sounds. The administration went to great lengths to silence us. We were told that if we objected to it, that we were the problem. And if we ever spoke out about it publicly, we would never be able to get a job. We would be tainted by this for the rest of our lives, and we would be on the wrong side of history. And finally, they told us if we continue to object, please seek psychological services. And they gave us the number for a therapist. So, I mean, as us women who object to undressing next to a man, 18 times per week we had to do this, 6'4" tall man. And again, they told us again, if we objected, we were the problem. And no one stood up for us. So I said to myself and Riley and a bunch of other girls, if we can't expect them to stand up for us, we had to do it for ourselves. And that's why a bunch of us are now speaking out about this issue and raising awareness to not just the unfairness in sports, but also the silencing of all of it. Again, we were told if we had opinions on this, we should not share them publicly, and if we ever did, our life would be over. Well, I mean, I can paint the picture for you very clearly. There was this day we got this email that said mandatory team meetings, this time, pool stands, every member of the women's team, you must be there. And our coaches were at this meeting, but they were pushed aside into the corner, and they brought in multiple people from the athletic department, so liaisons to the AD, the athletic director. They brought in activists from the LGBTQ center. They brought in a representative from psychological services. They brought in a bunch of other random administrators that probably shouldn't have jobs anyway and are making way too much money to do absolutely nothing at all. All of those people were it was a whole panel of, I didn't even realize there was that many administrators that were available to be sent to this meeting at the time. But of course, you know, college campuses, the bureaucracy of it, they find people, and they brought us a whole panel to try to scare us. And actually after that, they would keep sending representatives from the athletic department to watch over our meets. They accompanied us on training trips to say, we're here to help. They're not here to help. They're here to say, we're watching you guys, and we want to make sure our message is loud and clear, and you've heard every single word we've said this entire season. Shut your mouth. At the beginning during the season, I was very vocal about my opinions of it being unfair, but again, it was not met with encouragement. Most people told me that I should be quiet, that it was a privilege to even swim D1 in college, which of course it was. It was a privilege, but that should not come with being shut down. That should not come with being told you're a horrible person because you're speaking truth. But nonetheless, I struggled with this for a long time. But eventually, my turning point is there's this high school volleyball player named Peyton McNabb. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story, but Peyton was a high school volleyball player in North Carolina. She was knocked unconscious by a volleyball, hit by a trans athlete on the opposing team. So a boy playing on a girls' volleyball team, knocked her unconscious completely. She's partially paralyzed in her face, and she went on to not be able to play sports at all in college. She's now in college. She just finished her first year, and she was not able to play sports in college whatsoever because of these sustaining injuries.
The North Carolina High School Athletic Association policy states that it allows participation in interscholastic athletics for all students, regardless of gender or gender identification. It is the intent that all students are able to compete on a level playing field in a safe, competitive, and friendly environment, free of discrimination. Clearly, that does not include biological female athletes.
And it was that moment when I heard that story, and that was a few months after I had experienced what I did on the University of Pennsylvania swim team. I graduated at this point. Peyton's story, I, showed up, and I was working that corporate job that they told me I was going to lose if I ever spoke out. I was doing what they wanted me to do. I stayed quiet. I had a job. I, was who they wanted me to be. I read this story, and it brought me to tears. I mean, legitimately, I had this moment where I realized, okay, what I went through, the silencing, the locker room, it was uncomfortable, it was awful, all of those things are true. But we are now allowing girls, and young girls, to be permanently injured by this. That's not acceptable. And it was that moment where I said, if I continue to stay quiet on this issue, I felt personal responsibility for that happening to Peyton, because I had an opportunity to share what the University of Pennsylvania did to us. Again, at this point in time, nobody knew the full truth of the great lengths they went to silence us. Nobody knew the full details of how often Thomas was changing the locker room with us. And I knew that I was part of the problem if I continued to stay quiet. So it was really at that point I just said, I don't care what I might lose. I don't care who might call me names. If I stand by this, I stand by abuse to young girls. And again, we were college students. We were aware of what was happening. But Peyton is a high school student. She's a minor. And if we can't stand up for her, I can't call myself a good person.